Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now I'm going to keep this one real brief. Look, we had Magnificent 7 on Saturday night and it was a good card. I still haven't been able to see the first few fights on the main card. I haven't had the chance to watch it. Obviously, you know, it's one of those ones, but I've kind of got the results. Obviously, the first thing that did take place was Ezra Taylor was on the YouTube portion of the event, taking that part took place. I think it was like 5:30 that started, and it was the only fight that was on the YouTube portion, which I guess does kind of set you up for the rest of the event itself. So Ezra Taylor did well against Prince Okati. It was a little good fight. I mean, Ezra Taylor pretty much did his thing. He was overshooting some of his power shots, I guess trying to make a statement, and I think he said pretty much afterwards that his performance wasn't that great. But I think he got Okati out of there in, I think it was the 5th round, the 4th or the 5th. He was complaining, obviously, Okati, about the stoppage, and I understand kind of what he was saying, because he was still like firing back. There was never any moment where he was just taking sort of unanswered shots. He was still trying to defend and stuff, but his punch resistance looked very compromised from the first couple of shots that he got hit with. His construct, his frame, everything just kind of, I guess, went all over the place. Which very much reminds me of something that Ade used to say when he said that a lot of these, like, you know, like the African fighters, Ghanaian, South African, etc., whenever they sort of end up leaving their punch resistance is usually heavily compromised, because they just have really, really hard, tough, rugged bouts, like inside the country. Like all of their pro bouts normally are there, and it's always like tough fight after tough fight after tough fight, very hard sparrings, and then by the time they leave, the resistance is just kind of non-existent. He kind of gave me that kind of vibe, but yeah, he obviously wanted to carry on. He was upset, protesting to the referee, etc. But I get it, cool. I think the fight that started the card was Ethan James and Owen Cooper. Now that one, I've got to say, I predicted that Ethan James would win, just because he had a bit more pro experience. I did say that Owen Cooper was, I guess, maybe a slightly bigger puncher, because he was like 9-0, I think, with 3 KOs, and Ethan James was 12-0 with no KOs. Well, it looks like Owen Cooper got the victory, and I think he ended up getting it in a first round stoppage. Now I haven't seen it yet, but that's what it looked to have read on when I was checking BoxRec. So I mean, maybe the power's coming in. I didn't actually check Owen Cooper's record to see when the KOs were happening, like, because if it's the last few fights and the last few fights he's had, then you could say, oh, okay, so he's now developing that man strength. But I haven't done enough research. That's something I'll have a look at another time. There was Havanes Arosian against Pierce O'Leary. Haven't seen it, but I do know that Pierce O'Leary did win, and I think he won a KO in the 9th round. Now, I did say that fight would go late, and I think I predicted it would reach the final bell and Pierce O'Leary would win a huge points decision. But I said it's either that or he would win it in like rounds. I think I said like rounds 8 or 9. Can check the other video and fact check me. I don't quite remember exactly off the top of my head right now, but yeah, that's one of the few fights I haven't actually had a chance to see yet, but I definitely do want to see it because I think Pierce O'Leary is a very fun fighter. Pierce Big Bang O'Leary. So yeah. Otherwise, after that, you had Dennis McAn against Brad Strand. Now, I came into this fight from about the 6th round on when I was doing the live stream. So at that point, it looked as if Dennis McAn was in, fine confidence, bossing, controlling the fight. But from about the 10th round, Brad Strand, who from what I could see in the rounds that I was watching before, was basically he was the one taking the periphery, like sort of trying to fight on the counters and everything. But sort of the 10th, 11th round on, he actually started fighting more on the front foot and being more of a front foot counter puncher, but just initiating the action. And that to me was telling, because had he have started doing that earlier, because he actually started to affect Dennis McAn in some of the stuff that he was doing, and maybe that would have been the opportunities he needed to actually rack up more rounds. So it was a bit unfortunate that he started that so late, but it was, from what I saw, it was fairly comfortable. Next up, we had Zack Parker against Tyrone Zoiga. Now, this one was a problem because Zack Parker was switching stances continuously in the first round. He did it. He switched stance about 6 times, maybe more. And don't get me wrong, switch it in. People that switch it, they're very talented, but then you very rarely will find someone that will switch it that much in the space of 3 minutes. And usually, if you're switching because of that, it's a nervous thing. It's okay, you don't like how something's working, so let me switch again, but okay, that's even worse. Okay, I'll switch back. But he was just kind of switching for no apparent reason, and to the point that he ended up getting caught square on and getting taken out by, I think it was a big overhand right that caught him when after he had switched from the southpaw stance in the 2nd round. And he sort of he fell forward, gloves touched the floor. He did get a little cheeky shot afterwards as the gloves were touching the floor by Zoiga. But at that point, I was like, oh, maybe Zoiga's got, he could have found his measure. Now, after that, Zoiga didn't do enough to set up certain shots. He was walking down Parker, obviously, he was walking him down behind the high guard. Parker was being extremely dirty with certain things he was doing, using the lead arm to push Zoiga back. So instead of punching, he'd be pushing with the lead arm, he'd be dipping the shoulder in, and just other little bits and pieces. And you can see Zoiga just very frustrated at this point. He's smiling a lot of the time, he's just looking and sometimes smiling at the ref like, okay, what are you're not going to do anything? All right, fine, like, come on, guy, kind of thing. It was one of those type of situations. He caught Parker with some decent shots, but he just didn't set anything up. Everything was just a big sweeping right here, big sweeping left there, and Parker, for the most part, did well to kind of get out of the way of a bunch of them, and so he ended up winning the fight quite convincingly, but very unimpressively. And I will tell you, if he gets put into that 5v5 at either 168 or 175, he's an accident waiting to happen. That's basically what I will say about that. It's still baffling, the fact that Demetrius Andrade pulled out of a Zack Parker fight thinking that would be an issue. But his loss was John Ryder's gain at the time. What was the next fight after that one? The next fight after that, I believe, was the Joe Joyce and Cash Ali fight, I do think. Yeah. Now, Joyce extremely slow, extremely ponderous in this one. It wasn't like, obviously a lot of people always comment that Joe Joyce is a slow heavyweight. To me, I've always said, look, his jab is quite fast, his feet are fast, it's just his right hand that's slow, and the body mechanics that it takes to get from one punch to the next, the transition is where he's slow. But clearly he's got great timing because he always seems to connect. But in this one, no, even though he's still one of the best heavyweights there is at cutting off the ring and stopping your exit points, he was really, really slow and plodding and ponderous. And it's even I had to say, yeah, he's slow. The jab was slow, the feet were slow, everything was just slow, like super slow. And he came in at 286 pounds or something like that. I don't know what he was doing in camp. Furthermore, or more importantly, I actually don't know what weight he started camping, but that wasn't good at all. Laboured to a 10th round, like it was a stoppage, and basically it was the last 6 or 7 seconds of the fight, and Cash Ali could have got it. I mean, he jumped up late. I actually think he probably did it to, just to say, oh, well, I tried to beat the count, but he didn't really want any more. But it's a shame because there's only about 6 or 7 seconds left of the round. He could have survived it and actually gone the distance and made Joe Joyce look even worse by going the distance rather than getting a very, very last minute stoppage. But it's a case that Cash Ali taking you the distance, or even taking you 10 rounds, and you're supposed to be an elite heavyweight that's pretty much just been on, piling on the pressure from the first part of the fight up to the end. It's not a great a great endorsement on you and your skills at that point. And I don't know how much he's got left. I need to see him again I don't know if he'd be a same level fighter, or if they'd just try and throw him back in at the deep end. But based on that performance, like his best days were probably going to be behind him anyway. But yeah, he may be could be very much coming towards the end for the Juggernaut, which it's a shame, but these things happen. Then you had Liam Davis versus Eric Robles Ayala. Now this one, Ayala won the belt from McGregor, but the belt was coming up as vacant on BoxRec. I don't know if something happened where he was no longer recognized as the champ, but still had the ability to fight for it. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought that fight would go late as well, because Ayala, obviously in the one loss that he had, was there was no knockdowns or anything like that. Went to distance, went to points. But yeah, Liam Davis decided not to read from the same script that I thought he would read from, and credit to him. Second round KO, sneaky right uppercut, sort of just through the guard. Didn't even really throw any big power on it, just kind of let it go. And one thing I've been saying is that Liam Davis has got an ability at this point to, like, his technique and his shots don't necessarily look that, they don't look that clean. They don't look he doesn't look that textbook, but everything he does is effective, and he is going from strength to strength. So I've got to big up Liam Davis, and I'm interested to see kind of what happens with him moving forward, where he, who he decides to fight next. Now he does now hold that IBO world title at super bantamweight. So yeah, it'd be good to see kind of what he does there. But cool. Last but not least on that card, you had Nathan Heeney versus Brad Pauls. Now this ended up being a split decision draw. I feel like a draw was understandable. A draw was fair-ish, but if one person kind of did just about enough to win overall, I would have actually said Heeney, because the first 6 rounds of the fight, especially the first 3 to 4 rounds, like, he was really, really accurate and active. And then you could say maybe they split the next 2 rounds, the 5th and the 6th. Then you had Brad Paul sort of coming alive in maybe the 7th and the 8th. Heeney, I think, had a good-ish 9th as well, and I think the two of them had it was one of those rounds towards the end, I think, ended up being scored as like a 10-10. Nathan Heeney he basically has crisis mode initiated, I believe, once in the 9th round. It was the 8th or the 9th round, and then another crisis mode in the 11th. Has to come through those, where he does very extremely well to stay on his feet, basically, in both of these rounds. In the 12th round, I think he just about kind of nicks the 12th. And yeah, it ends up being a split decision. They're now looking possibly to run that one back, and you could end up running that one back at the Stoke round. He wasn't happy that obviously he got a draw. He felt he let the people down. He felt he did more than enough to win it. I kind of agree with him. I do kind of see where he's coming from, but yeah, he did get rocked quite heavily in a few of those. And I actually did say in the preview that I wouldn't be surprised. Ultimately, Brad Pauls is going to be the power puncher in this. He's going to be the one that's got to have to try and win it through strength of arms, because Heeney will get the boxing, and he managed to do that. So, shout out to him. But yeah, that's the end of that card pretty much. Over in the States, we did, there was William Zepeda and Maxi Hughes. Now you had Floyd Scroffield on the undercard against Suaro. I thought that was a nice little fun, entertaining fight. There was some very dirty moments in there from Suaro, but also some, some dirty-ish type moments from Floyd Scroffield as well. And the most dirty one of them actually being the fact that he lunged in, collapsed the pocket at one point, I think it was in the 3rd round, with his head. He actually was the one that led with his head, but then he was the one ended up getting a really nasty gash across the top of his head, across the top of his eyebrow. So that's the second one, because in his fight before last, he got a really nasty cut on his cheek from a head clash, and now he's got a big cut over the eyebrow. So if he's going to start cutting up easy, that's a bad omen, especially for someone that's only I think 22 or 23. That also could maybe mean that he's finding the weight too tight. So his skin's dry, is naturally dry, so he's cutting up a lot easier. But he ended up winning the fight by a 5th round DQ, because Suaro hit him with a low blow after being warned and deducted a point for a low blow earlier on in the fight. He also was deducted a point for dropping Scroffield to the floor. He ended up underneath Scroffield, and as he was obviously rising up, he's got Scroffield in his arms and kind of just lets him fall. It was a fun fight. I can't really go too much more into it than that. Have a look if you haven't watched it. But yeah, it was a interesting fight. But I think they're going to start maybe slightly pump the brakes on Floyd and his trajectory at the minute. Then we had William Zepeda, William Zepeda versus Maxi Hughes. And look, Maxi Hughes did very well in the 1st round. He actually won the 1st round, but he started to fight a fight that just was not his fight to fight, really getting on the inside, and really basically trying to trade with William Zepeda. So rather than moving, trying to create distance, he sort of held his feet and tried to almost bully the bully, so to speak. But he had he had a lot of success in the first, but that was when the success stopped, because round 2, round 3 and round 4, where eventually it was stopped when he got to the corner afterwards, was just William Zepeda just going into overdrive, body shots after body shots, head shots. A lot of stuff was that Hughes was actually doing well to sort of block and ride a lot of the upper body stuff on the gloves, on the arms, but he just couldn't stop those body shots. You could see they were visibly folding him over. It was tough, but he actually was in there grinding that. He was trying to throw shots back. So respect to him there. He was getting hit with a lot of low shots as well, and the ref was not saying or doing anything, but he didn't complain about any of them. He just carried on trying to dig away himself at William Zepeda, but he just did not have the firepower. And when I was doing the live stream, the first thing I was saying is the fact he ain't got no firepower. William Zepeda is not respecting these shots in the slightest, and that's ultimately how it played out. The team pulled him out after the 4th, said we can't have any more of this, and it's a shame. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what else is left for Maxi Hughes, but maybe he can get 1 or 2 paydays additional to that. Yeah, I'll speak more about that on the breakdown come Tuesday. That morning, then you ended up, there was a DAZN card in Australia, a Tasman Fighters card, which was headlined by Conor Wallace and Jack Gipp. Jack Gipp was actually a super middleweight initially, moved up to light heavy. He basically said at the end of the fight it's because he doesn't like to cut weight. He said he'd much rather fight bigger guys than, come in the ring feeling compromised. But he had a pretty very fun exchange in fight with Conor Wallace. Caught Conor in the first few rounds. Actually, was the quicker, the sharper guy, smaller as well. But the two of them, were exchanging. I thought it would be more of a tactical battle chess match. That's kind of what Conor said he expected the fight to be when I spoke with him week before last. But they pretty much just kind of came out guns blazing, to be totally honest. And it ended up with Conor Wallace getting a TKO stoppage in the 6th round. It was a 10-rounder. He knocked him down once in the 6th. Gipp came up, said he was happy to carry on. Conor kind of came in for the kill. Gipp still tried to exchange with him, but just those long levers of Conor Wallace took him out. And yeah, that was pretty much the end of that. Now, there was a potential knockout of the year candidate earlier on the card. I don't remember. I missed that fight, but I saw it on the highlights afterwards. I need to get the name of the fight. Bear with me 1 second, because it might end up on my list. Knockout of the year. One sec. Let's see if it tells me which fight it was. The event, and pretty much most of the fights here went via KO. I think it may have been Ben Mulvihill KOing Corey Crittenden. I think it's that one. If it's not that one, then light heavyweight, that looks like it's the right one. It was either that or it was Max McIntyre against Amazi Enyi. But yeah, it was a good knockout, basically. Long story short. And last but not least, look, Dillian Whyte came back on St. Patrick's Day in the evening over here in the UK. Hence why this video came out this morning instead of last night. Now, I've seen some of the footage. Dillian looked sort of a bit cumbersome, very slow. I mean, Christian Hamo isn't really like a guy that's going to make you have to work and try to work to find him. So I guess Dillian did what he needed to do. Looked like he got caught with a couple of shots there, but he hadn't been in the ring for about 16 months, so just getting back out there was fine. Digging in some good body shots. Also had Buddy McGirt in the corner, and you know, Buddy was saying, look, forget about the head, go to the body, that's what we want. You know, Dillian stabbed to the body a couple of times, digs to the body. He did do a couple of wild swings from the footage that I saw up to the head, which missed. And that's a trait that you're never really, I guess, gonna train out of him, because he's had 3 different coaches at this point, and he still sort of reverts to type from time to time. But yeah, he needs another 1 or 2 fights before he gets like a big Saudi type fight or a big domestic dust up or whatever. He's got to get 2 more fights in and around the Christian Hammer level before he considers anything else, because his timing was off. He didn't look in the greatest of shape. Don't know obviously how long he had to prepare for this fight. I can't imagine it was that long, because we only found out about it about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, with a bit more training and stuff, he should be all right. But yeah, I'm not even going to say too much about it. We didn't really see much of it, but it's good that he's back. I will leave it there, because outside of those fights, there was nothing else that really happened that was worth mentioning. Yeah, anything else, I've got episodes and stuff that I can do, so I can speak about that stuff there. But yeah, look, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. I apologize, this one's probably not the most energetic. I've recorded it a lot later than I was supposed to. It was supposed to drop an hour ago, about hour and a half, but yeah, so things happen. But that being said, thank you everyone who's tuned in to the live streams this week. Thank you to all the new subscribers, anyone who dropped super chats and messages and stuff like that. So big ups to you. More content to follow. Pretty much the weekend all wrapped up, and I will catch you on the next one. But until then, thank you for watching. Peace.